So, our next session is the traditional CSI interview, which will be done by myself and my friend Warrican. And you will know that it is our honor to invite my old friend Bharat Dalvi onto the stage. If you could welcome him, really big hand to Bharat. So Bharat really doesn't need any introduction, but it would be unfair not to say a few words about his career. He was born in October '57, so he's younger than me. He graduated from KEM Hospital in Mumbai and was head of one of the units in the Department of Cardiology. His area of interest has been pediatric cardiology, although he started his career as an adult cardiologist because that's how it was in those days, and we'll address some of those questions. He's pioneered some techniques such as closing very large ASDs with balloon assistance. He's had scholarships from different bodies that have resulted in Bharat spending some time in US and UK. Currently, he's at the Glenmark Cardiac Center, Nanavati Hospital in Mumbai. He's very well published, about 300 odd papers now, delivered many guest lectures around the world in national and international meetings. He's a regular faculty member to many of these meetings as well. He was the president of the Pediatric Cardiac Society of India and editor-in-chief of the Annals of Pediatric Cardiology. So many roles around the world. He's fellow of American College of Cardiology. As far as the journals are concerned, he's on the editorial board of many journals, one of which is Cardiology in the Young, where he's actually been a brilliant help in improving the English language of many of the papers, which seems strange that a journal published in the UK has to rely on an Indian to improve the English language of many of the papers. With those brief words, again, once more, a big hand to Bharat before we start the interview.
Jack. What it feels to me, sitting here with my legends, two of them, and my honor to be part of this interviewing. So allow me to start with some kind of basic question first, okay? So tell me a little bit, tell us a bit about your family. How many siblings you have?
Okay, so as Shaq said, I was born in 1957 in a middle-class family. I have my father was an accountant in a private company, and my mother was a homemaker, and I have one elder sister who is also a homemaker.
Sorry, Bharat. So tell me a bit about how you become to be a medical student. What happened to your thoughts from the beginning? Like, what brought you to medical school?
So basically, it so happened that in my family, my grandfather was quite seriously ill, hospitalized for many days, many months, and we were almost wiped off financially, and really the diagnosis was never made, and they were guessing, like it happens many times in medicine. So my father's uncle told me that this is what happens to a family if you don't have a doctor. And from that day, I decided I want to become a doctor. So whenever there was an essay in the school, what do you want to become? And all my friends' parents will vouch for this. They used to always say, there was one boy in the class who said that he wants to be a doctor since he was in second standard. So that is how it
I
happened.
see. So it looks like the family, influencing you to become a doctor.
Absolutely. And the situation at home.
But after during medical school, did you decide whether you're going to go for ped cardiologist or what kind of specialist that you want to go?
Really, if I were to tell you, I'm a pediatric cardiologist by accident. As Shaq said, I was trained in adult cardiology. I have no background in pediatrics. In India at that time, there was no pediatric cardiology. So pediatric cardiology was a part of general cardiology. And we used to have one professor of pathology, late Suman Kinnare, who worked with Maurice Lave and Dr. Van Praag. And she used to conduct pathology classes on Monday afternoon. She had buckets of every anatomy or morphology that you can describe. One bucket, tricuspid atresia. You can see all tricuspid atresias. And at the end of the session, every time, and I was very active in those sessions, making presentations, at the end of every session, she would tell me that, look, what is happening to these children? In our country, there is no pediatric cardiologist, and these children die like flies. So despite not being a clinician, she could actually feel their pain. And when I graduated, the whole glamour was in angioplasty. But I'm basically a contrarian by nature. And everybody around told me that don't do pediatric cardiology, you will starve. And you better go for angioplasty, including some of my teachers. And they were well-meaning. They wanted me to do well. But I always thought that this is quite challenging. And if everybody is saying I should not become a pediatric cardiologist, I love challenges. So being contrarian, liking challenges, I decided to make a shift. And to tell you the truth, I don't regret one bit that I became a pediatric cardiologist.
Well, becoming ped cardiologist is by accident.
Absolutely.
How about becoming ped interventional cardiologist?
I mean, that was not an accident, that was by choice for a change. So I really, if you ask me, pediatric interventions were in its infancy at that time. And many times I'm asked, who is your mentor? And really there was no mentor. So I learned everything on the job. And one thing I did was that wherever I went, I kept my eyes and ears open, whether it was at the Children's Hospital in Boston, whether it was at Great Ormond Street, or whether I visited Orakan's lab, or when Shaq came around, or when Zahid was there, and Mazni, and KK, and Shiva, and there were many. So these are all my mentors. I learn every day, and I learn from everybody. And I learn two things in an interventional lab. I learn what to do, and I also learn what not to do. So that is how I have come to reach to this level.
Thanks, Bharat. Well, at your early stage of being a ped cardiologist, interventional cardiology, what was the most significant events that leaving you until now? Please, if you can share.
Yeah, I think, this is, I can say, one of the lowest point of my professional life. And that case I'm going to show you, one of the reasons why I moved away from transcatheter closure of perimembranous VSDs. This was a 1.5-year-old child who came with a moderate sized or maybe even moderately large perimembranous VSD, had a dextrocardia with ILI subset. I closed the VSD very successfully, no residual shunt, no aortic valve issues, nothing. For 1.5 years, the family was in tremendous joy because everything was going in the right direction. And one fine morning, she came with tachycardia, tachypnea, inability to breathe, and they came to me, and I saw, this was 2 years after the implantation, and I saw that this child had developed a left bundle branch block, a ventricular dyssynchrony, and an ejection fraction of maybe 20%. And such a young kid couldn't do a biventricular pacing. Nobody was willing in India to do a bi-way pacing. Left bundle pacing was just in its infancy, and I keep seeing this child over and over again with that dilated heart. So what was probably a straightforward problem, I have converted it into a problem which I don't know even has a solution. So that I think probably, and it hurts me even today. I wake up with, in the middle of the night with sweats when I see this child and the kind of things that has happened to her.
Thanks for sharing, sir. Shaq, anything you want to ask?
You briefly alluded to this, but we all have mentors that we aspire to follow. So can you name one person who might, or two perhaps, to make it easier for you, who might have made such a huge difference to you and your career?
I would think that I may not be able to name one or two people, but I would think one of the persons in my medical school who influenced me a great deal was one Professor Dastoor, who was my professor in internal medicine. And for two reasons I really admire him. One is that he really inculcated a spirit of intellectual honesty in me. So I could get up in any meeting and say, I don't know this, and wouldn't feel bad about it. And second thing is that he also nurtured a spirit of academic dissidence. When I grew up in medical school, Shaq, we used to call our chiefs as bosses. They were really bosses, and bosses were always right. But this was one odd man out who could actually nurture my intellectual dissidence and always encouraged me to ask questions. And I think that has influenced me a great deal in my future career.
And that's presumably what has made you challenge things, because ever since I've known you at meetings, you've always got up and asked very challenging questions.
Yeah, I think, and I'm not really scared of asking a question as to whether somebody will laugh at me or say something. If I have a question, I would just get up and ask anybody who is on the dais.
And so in your career then, can you briefly address all the firsts that you might have done?
Really speaking, I don't know whether they are truly firsts, but a few things I can tell you is one is on the clinical side, I think balloon-assisted technique has been one of my firsts. Before that, we used to do PDA closures where I used a Swan-Ganz balloon, again, to assist the delivery of coils. That was in mid-90s. And then currently we have patented one sheath. It is very much like a Gore dry seal sheath, but not the same principle. So this sheath is a 24, 26 French sheath, which will track not over one guide wire, but it will track over 2 or 3 guide wires. So we have made some modifications, and then we have modified the dilator so that there is no back bleed. The other couple of things is I'm the founder member of Pediatric Cardiac Society of India. We were just 5 of us when we started this society, and I'm very proud to say that today we have over 500 members. And the last is starting a journal for the society. When everybody said that you can't even start a newsletter, what are you talking about starting a journal? But as I said, I love challenges. And I'm very happy to say that I was the founder editor of that journal. And within 4 years, we got it indexed as well. So I would think that these are some of the things which I'm really proud of.
And any other major contributions to pediatric cardiology?
Not really. I mean, our last contribution has been basically in circulation interventions regarding multiple ASDs, and we have evolved our own strategy of dealing with multiple ASDs by interrogating the tissue, separating the multiple defects, and deciding whether we are going to go ahead with a single device or a multi-device, and if it's a single device strategy, what is the size of device that we are going to use. And lastly, I would say, I think what has given me maximum pleasure is in tutoring and training many of the students at KEM Hospital and St. J.S. Medical College, and some of whom are doing so well. I mean, they have bypassed me far too long, I think. That I would think gives me the maximum pleasure and gratification.
And I'm sure the audience would be interested in a little bit more about the family background, you know, your wife and children and so on. We can spend a long time on the families,
yeah,
obviously.
I think my wife is really the homemaker. She is by herself a leader in her own field. She's an oncohematologist and travels all around the world for her own professional interests. But then she really looked after the family, and she was the one who kept the family together when I used to work almost 17, 18 hours a day and travel maybe 35, 40 weekends in a year. I have two wonderful daughters, Neeti and Anuya. Neeti is a dentist and is in a private practice in Manhattan, and Anuya is trained in computer science and then has done financial engineering at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and currently works for a private fintech company called Stripe, and she also is in New York.
And you didn't push them to go into medicine, or your wife for that matter?
I think the children who grow in current era, they are so well exposed to so many things, and I don't think that they would listen to us, even if I were to tell them. But looking at my lifestyle, one of my daughters, Anuya, she said that I would never become a doctor. And so she saw to it that she dropped biology in 12th standard. So even with peer pressure, she doesn't want to go that way at all. But fortunately, the other daughter, she did take up dentistry, and I'm quite happy about it.
Yeah. Warkan?
Yeah, so let's go back a little bit to your childhood. How simple or difficult was your childhood, if you can share?
Yeah, I stayed in a big joint family. Warkan, you will not imagine, we used to have 28, 29 people staying under one roof. Me, my family, then my next family, and then my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, so on and so forth. I wouldn't say that I was poor, but I didn't have to study in under a street lamp. But then we were just okay. But I had a very happy childhood with so many people around and so many people taking care of me and wonderful sets of grandparents, I think. But one thing I'll tell you is that in my family, education was of utmost importance. All sins will be excused if you do well in your studies. And my mother was a big taskmaster. She wouldn't she was very strict, and she wouldn't take anything lightly as far as the academics were concerned. So she would give me leeway elsewhere. I could play, do this, do that. But if I didn't perform, that was the end of it.
So at home, that was your lasting impression also, or any other lasting impression you want to share?
Yeah, I will tell you, one incident I must share with you. When I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, and one afternoon, it was a Saturday afternoon, half-day school, and I was sitting with my mom, and rang the bell, so I went and opened, and I saw my dad drenched in sweat. He was drenched, and he was almost looking as if he's come from walking in the sun maybe for an hour or 2 hours. So I was scared really, and he walked in. And then I asked my mom, what's wrong with Dad? And she said that he works on Saturdays to make some extra money. And he had, so he used to really audit an account in a race course, which was almost 7 or 8 kilometers from my house. And in order to save 20 cents for the bus trip, he had come walking. So I think that was one of the things which has left a very lasting impression. My mom told me that day that he does this because he wants you to have a good life. And I think that the other thing she told me is that don't let this man down. So I think that was one episode which I remember very distinctly, and I remember him even today. So if I start enjoying life too much, I see his face and I say that no, I must control myself. I shouldn't let this man down. So.
Bharat, medical schools, I'll go backwards and forwards, but medical schools nowadays are completely different. When you were studying medicine, are you able to compare whether it was easier then or easier now?
I'll tell you, I may not be able to compare, but I'll tell you, Shaq, I was very lucky. I went to a medical school which was one of the best medical schools. And why I say it was a best medical school, because my classmates, one of them was a long-distance runner shortlisted for Olympics to represent India. Another one was a playwright of national repute. There were some playback singers. There were some critics who used to write the critique for a play or for a movie in eveningers. We had some quiz masters. I was good at nothing, but only to rub shoulders with these people was a great experience. What I see today is that most of the people are busy reading textbooks and giving multiple choice questions, and if you ask them, very few of them indulge themselves into the so-called extracurricular activities. I'm not saying none, but very few of them. That was almost a rule during my time when most of them did things other than medicine, and that was, I think, a great fun.
Yeah. If you had your time all over again, would you be doing this stressful specialty, or would you have preferred to have played cricket? Because I know that you would have been very good.
Yeah, no, I was good in cricket. But again, my father told me, you have to decide, because in those days, cricket was not so well paid, to tell you the truth. So he asked me, you have to make a choice. You either can become a cricketer and struggle the whole of your life, which most of them did, or you have to become a professional. And when I was as young as maybe 10 or 11 years, I said that I must give up cricket. Having said that, if you ask me, I think my life has been really terrific. I cannot complain. I think Almighty has given me everything, maybe far more than what I ever deserved. So I would say that if I were to born, I would have to live the 60 years all over again, I would just say ditto. I love this specialty. I'm very passionate, and if not doing it firsthand, maybe over time I would probably go on the sidelines and involve myself in teaching, in research, but I would like to die with my boots on. I would not give up pediatric cardiac interventions.
If in all our careers we have high points, we have low points. And I'm sure you must have had a high point where you were really feeling great and a low point. Can you pick one for each of those?
Yeah, so about the low points, I said that probably such patients who get complicated either immediately or thereafter, they are my low points, and they keep me awake even today, although these procedures have been done maybe 10, 15 years, that way I'm not fit to become an interventional cardiologist in that aspect. But, and there are not one or two, there may be a dozen such episodes. The high point has been last 1.5 months. Being given Lifetime Achievement Award at the PICS and now at the CSI, what more could I ask for? A recognition and admiration from your peers. I mean, that is the biggest high. What more can you ask for? So I think this last 1.5 months has been the biggest high of my professional life.
And how about your low point? You told me about, you told us about, you know, the patients.
Yeah,
But the
on
point,
my personal front, I would say my low point was my mom. You know, she had advanced Alzheimer's for almost 5 years. To see her go through that
yeah.
was the most difficult thing.
And when you face low points, what keeps you, I mean, wake up in the morning and say, well, today is a good day, I should do something, and
I'm a
you
great
know.
believer. I believe in the Almighty. And I always say that He has given me so many good things. Ultimately, He also has to fix His book of accounts. So some things are going to go wrong. It's just that I should keep working and doing good for the people around. And I think that's what has kept me going. I rarely have times to really get depressed and think about things. I always keep working for a good cause. I always have a project or two in mind. And I think that has kept me going through all thick and thin.
And how would you like to be remembered?
I don't think that people would remember me, but if they would, I would like them to remember me as maybe honest and hardworking fellow. That's about it.
Thank you.
Plans for the future?
Plans
you want
for the
to,
future.
Are you going
as
to retire, or are you going to carry on?
No, I don't think that I would retire. Unfortunately, Shaq, I have no other qualities. I cannot sing, I cannot play an instrument, I cannot draw. So what will I do? So, and I have tremendous interest in pediatric cardiology, pediatric interventions. I like to teach. I also like to work in the lab and try my hands at some inventions, even if I fail. As I told you that I never, ever I'm afraid of failure, because I always believed that it's better to try and fail rather than not having tried at all. So I would love to keep doing the same things.
So at some stage, let's say you do retire, how would you like the younger colleagues here to remember you?
I think I would like them to remember me, as I said, as being honest, hardworking, and maybe not all will agree, but a humble human being.
The maybe you won't want to answer a few quick questions. One is the first love of your life.
I've had 35 years of great marriage, and if I were to disclose all these truths, I may be out of my house tomorrow. So I think Rashmi has been my first love and the only love. I didn't have the kind of, I was not really very savvy, and I didn't have that kind of smartness, and certainly no money to have girlfriends and take them on dates. And really speaking, I did not grow up in that culture. It was a different culture in India those days.
Yeah.
So I was so very focused. I must have missed many good things in life, but that is how it was.
Yeah.
And I don't regret, to tell you the truth.
And when you were a teenager with siblings or friends, did they beat you up or did you beat them up?
No, I think most of the times I was at the receiving end.
You,
The reason is I always like to play or interact with people who are much bigger than me. So I always got hit. But that is why I'm a survivor in life. I don't care. Even if I fall down, I will get up again.
Excellent. I'm going to give one member of the audience the chance to ask a question. Just a quick show of hand if anybody has any question. It can be career or personal. Anybody want to ask Bharat a question before we finish? Yeah. Are you able to run there, Warwick, with the microphone? Or?
No, please.
Yeah.
Bharat, we've always appreciate the way that you ask questions, probing questions that nobody dared to ask. Sometimes they appear to be simple, but really very enlightening. So my question to you is, there are a lot of young interventionalists here. You can see how our field has evolved. What will be your parting words for them?
My my advice to them is that I think that you should not do the same things over and over again. I think every one day when I meet my juniors, I ask them, what new questions have you thought about? You know, taking things for granted, I think, is the worst thing that we can do. I think asking a new question and trying to work or trying to find a solution for a new question is something everybody should be aspiring for. You may not succeed in life, but if you don't make an effort, then I think you have lost the battle before actually fighting it. So that would be my advice. Just ask some questions. You may think prima facie that this is a stupid question, but you never know. So never be shy of asking questions and trying to find answers for those questions.
All right. Bezad is jumping up and down, wanting to ask.
It's right here.
Yeah.
Bharat, I don't want to ask a question, but I want to tell you my feeling to you, and because it's a great honor to know you. But I was just telling to my colleague that if I want to describe you in just a word, you are a teacher, and a very good teacher.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Bharat, we really could have gone on and asked a lot more questions, but that really has been a snippet of your career and your life, family background. So thank you very much for allowing us a little bit of intrusion. And the last thing we'd want to do is give you a certificate and some flowers. And so a wonderful big hand for Bharat, please.